Okay, on Pro Soccer Talk here, we are going to preview the top three matchups for this weekend. Remember, you can watch all the Premier League action in the USA this season across NBCSN, Peacock, and all of the other TV platforms we have. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com. We have the TV schedule page up. We have everything you possibly need to know how to watch these games. Lads, let's have a brief chat about week 2 coming up. Of course, you can play the Premier League Pick'em game, which is a lot of fun. I'd urge anyone out there to do that if you fancy your chances of winning $50,000 for getting the scores correct for 5 games. I mean, that's not too difficult to do, right? We do that most weekends of our picks, I assume. But I'm going to start with the big one. How many?
Usually I'll get one on the previews, but that's about it. And you better believe that I'll go back and I'll screenshot it afterwards as well.
Very proud of the pick. So Pick'em is great. I'd urge you to go and have a go at that. Chelsea against Liverpool was the first game I want to focus on, lads. I'm really excited for this one. I think it could be a goal fest again, just like it was in July. Obviously, Pulisic's a little bit touch and go with the injury setback he's had. Looks like a minor one. But what do we expect here? Because as we sort of saw in week 1, of course, Liverpool got ripped apart by Leeds at times, but got the job done. And Chelsea could have easily conceded another couple against Brighton because they have Kepa in goal. I'm not being harsh there, but any shot from outside the box at the moment looks like it's going to go in. So, Andy, what do you expect from Chelsea-Liverpool this weekend?
I don't know if it's so much what I expect, but what I'm curious about, is it too soon for Chelsea to have, a matchup like this? You mentioned, the injuries and stuff that they've dealt with to start the season, with Pulisic not being, or maybe being available, maybe not. Some of the new players still coming in and kind of finding their way within that team. This is a potential, emphasis on potential. This could be, come the end of the season, if the Liverpool season goes the way that some people are thinking that it might, that they might regress just a little bit, Chelsea could be a third team that sneaks into that title race this season. And this could be a game that we look back on at the end of the season. If Chelsea can somehow manage 3 points and say, oh yeah, they did that in the second week of the season. They kind of proved to us early on that they were a very, very serious team, that they were a team for now. I don't think there's any doubt about what they're going to be long-term and over the course of 38 games this season, but how quickly can they kind of get up to speed to compete with a team like Liverpool? Man City obviously being the other title challenger there, but I'm going to be very, very curious to see how also Liverpool kind of, whether they change defensively or whether the game against Leeds was a blip on the radar for Jurgen Klopp. He didn't seem too worried after the game, and he tends to be someone who will tell you if they were terrible, they were terrible today. If they've got problems, we've got problems. But he said, I'm not too worried.
I think there's a bit of a front from Klopp there. I think if I'm watching that and I'm him, I would be quite concerned with the defensive mistakes. I mean, it happened at the end of last season, Project Restart. After they won the title, okay, maybe they had a few too many beers to celebrate and took their foot off the gas a little bit. But right, Nick, would you be a little bit concerned if you're Liverpool? Is this like an early statement for both teams here, Liverpool, and how serious they are about the repeat, and then Chelsea, how serious they are about taking that next step to be title contenders?
Oh, for sure. Pulisic might be key as well. And the one thing I want to point out is that the last 4 times I believe they played, Chelsea obviously getting a win in a cup, 9-8 is the scoreline. Go back, and Pulisic's been very good. The Super Cup, right? He had an assist, or did he score? He had an assist in that game. The first match last year, when Liverpool was playing as well as they have, Chelsea was probably the better team in terms of expected goals and might have come away with that. So for me, I've seen Liverpool fail to deal with this cast of characters. I mean, granted, they think they end up winning 3 out of the 4, but I've seen them fail to deal with them as effectively as they dealt with other teams. Werner here is a big one for me. I love whether he is slightly set to the left or as a center forward, to go up against Gomez, presuming that's who he goes against, is going to be a real interesting one. Obviously, Van Dijk, if he's over there, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But I like Chelsea to put on a game here, and I think it might come down to bounces.
Yeah, I think Chelsea's a bad matchup for Liverpool as well. When you look at some of the pace that they've got up top and the way that they'll look to counter a little bit more than kind of have possession and break them down. Liverpool pretty good with that, especially with the midfield that they've got. But the goals conceded, the mistakes that they made against Leeds all in kind of the middle third of the field, and counterattacking chances going the other way. And you have to think that a player like Werner and whoever it is on the wings, whoever's healthy and fit to play in this game, are going to have a little bit more quality to what they do on the counter, combining with one another than Leeds did. So this could actually be a pretty bad matchup for Liverpool, I think.
Yeah, and we might, I think, see Fabinho from the hop this time might make a difference.
He made a big difference when he came on. That's a good point, because they just need that extra defensive solidity, I think, when the fullbacks are bombing on so much throughout the game. He just gives them that extra safety net. So, yeah, massive game this Sunday, 11:30 Eastern time. Chelsea against Liverpool. Should be a belter. Next game I want to focus on is Wolverhampton Wanderers against Manchester City. And I think if you're Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez, you're licking your chops once again, right? I mean, Nathan Ake's come in. But apart from that, I thought Man City would have upgraded the defence a little bit more this summer. So I fancy Wolves, if they don't have an upset, at least to grab a point in this one. Nick, what do you think? I know you love yourself some Adama Traore.
Yeah, I'm really interested in if this idea of him kind of sitting further back. I mean, he's still bomb forward, but they lined him up behind Pedro Neto. Yeah, and that's it reminds me a little bit in a very weird way of some of the tactics of Sheffield United with their center backs, as if to say we trust we trust this guy going forward and going back so much. His heat map, if you looked at it, was a little bit further back, but he still completed something like 9 of 11 dribbles, which is insane, and he does it so consistently. I do like that matchup. I like the way Podence looked as well. But for me, the reason I think Wolves have a real chance here is their defense looked really, really solid. They're not going to be taxed as much in fixture congestion. I do think City's going to come away with a win, but I think we're in for a really, really good game where both teams score. And
I just want to say the colour of my shirt, I'm not a Wolves fan, but, you know, I'm kind of trying to get those autumn vibes over here in England. And, you know, Andy, Man City, what do you expect this season from them? Do you expect them to have kind of a reaction to being so far behind Liverpool, and also the Champions League issue, getting knocked out by Lyon? That was nothing that we saw coming, right? Everyone expected them to win the Champions League this summer.
Yeah, obviously they're going to be there, probably for the whole of the season, right there alongside Liverpool, maybe Chelsea as well, pushing on into that group. But I keep coming back to, and it's something that I thought about in January of last season, the summer of last season, and for a couple years now, when are they going to address the fullback positions at Manchester City? I know they brought Kyle Walker in a handful of years ago. João Cancelo hasn't quite settled. It hasn't quite happened for him. You know, Pep Guardiola's kind of gone with 3 center backs at the back at times. I don't think he knows what his best defense is. I'll put it a different way. I think he knows he doesn't have a good enough defense. And so that's why we've seen so much chopping and changing over the last couple seasons. And Nathan Ake, I think, is obviously a very, very good player.
Good upgrade.
Yeah.
But they need more, right? It's not just one player they need to bring into that defensive unit. That's the problem.
And I don't think it's a center back either. I think the center backs over the last couple of years, and if you go back and watch some of the goals that team has conceded, especially last season during the rough patches, the center backs were made to look poor because they're the ones that are there at the last touch, the finish, whatever. But they're put under pressure, unlike a lot of other teams in the Premier League, because of the fullbacks, because of the lack of quality out there. They get caught up the field way too much, and maybe that's a product of Guardiola and the way that he wants to play and the possession and everything. But the center backs have been done no favors for Liverpool, or for Man City the last couple of years. And so I tend to think, and I always kind of default towards you start defending at the top, you start defending out wide, and then everything. The center backs are there to clean up the messes that are still there. They're not the ones that are there to make all the defensive plays. You know, the modern game is so, kind of everybody plays both sides of the ball, and they're not being done any favors. And so I think if they can figure out the fullback positions, maybe there's a kind of an Adama Traore situation with somebody that they can kind of push back a line or two and provide a little bit more defensive cover while still having the attacking prowess. I have so many questions about what Man City are doing defensively, tactically, transfer market, everything to do with that.
I just want to point out, this is a good time to point out that Andy is actually a centre-back when he plays in Kansas City on the Sunday League. So, that's why he's sticking up so much for the centre-backs there. But someone's got to, Andy, because it's not right. You're right. Left back, right back, Mendy, Zinchenko. Who's going to play in those positions? It really is a concern for Man City, but they have so many great attacking talents, midfield players, that over the years they've gotten away with it, but I don't think they're going to do that anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised if they at least make one more centre-back signing, maybe Koulibaly from Napoli. That deal finally happens. Been speaking about it for so long, but it'll be really interesting. So Wolves Man City is another big game, and that's coming up on Monday at 3:15 p.m. Eastern time. So I want to jump into one more game, and I know Andy wants to talk about another game in particular, but Leeds United against Fulham, two new boys back in the Premier League together. I was impressed with both. Fulham started okay against Arsenal, struggled defensively a little bit, but they have like other teams we've talked about, they have a lot of players coming in that didn't actually feature on the opening day, so they will get better. They will look more solid. I think, Mitrovic being out injured and not fit enough to start against Arsenal hurt them. But I was so impressed with Leeds. The way that they attacked Liverpool, how brave they were. They're going to get caught out a lot, but they're going to be fun to watch, and they're going to catch out opposition teams, because the way that Calvin Phillips would drop deep, almost like a quarterback, and then Pablo Hernandez would push up, they'd pinch in, Jack Harrison would get in behind. That's how they got two of their goals in the first half there. It bamboozled one of the best defences in Europe, and Liverpool, or who have been very good for the last few seasons. And I just love seeing Marcelo Bielsa sat on a bucket on the sidelines in the Premier League. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, I think he maybe needs to get some kind of endorsement, like at least a seated, padded version, or he might need a little seated bucket for the winter months. But I love watching Leeds play. Fulham are very attractive to watch as well. I think both these teams may not do as well as people expect this season. I think people have gone pretty early on Leeds being this wonderful new team. I don't think they're going to be as good as Wolves were when they first got promoted. But anybody else on the Bielsa bandwagon there?
I worry about his knees. I saw pictures of him from 30 years ago. He's been doing this. That's been his thing, the squad. And I worry about the guy. I worry about my own knees. Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you who I don't worry about. And the reason I like Leeds to be, this isn't saying anything because some people have them finishing in the top 10, but the reason I think they will just make it through the season is I love Calvin Phillips. I think there were some rumors that he would be scooped up by someone bigger, but he is just a force. Obviously, getting that England nod has only going to bolster his confidence. He learned some things. But I think he's one of the reasons. One of the reasons there were problems for Liverpool is how combustible he is, and I believe he did register an assist there too on that ball to Jack Harrison. So, bring me that game, because I think Leeds is going to come out on top. And Joe, one more point. You mentioned people kind of thinking that both teams will be a little bit better. That's name quality. I mean, people have been you and I have for years, maybe 2-3 years now, said, man, I hope this is the year Leeds come up, because going back to that book, The Damn United, right? I mean, they're a team in the lore of English soccer, but it's going to take them a little bit to move up.
Yeah, I guess my question would be about Fulham, because, and I take the point on board that, they've got more players to come in, and they should improve. But do you think that there is kind of, I guess, the structure, the system in place that is going to allow those new players to come into the team and to have an impact rather quickly? Because they're going to need it. They're going to be down there around the relegation battle. And so they can't spend the first 2 months of the season figuring things out. And I think that's the big difference between these two teams, at least at this point of the season, is, Leeds had a couple players out, I think, as well on the weekend. Yeah. But they looked like it looked like everybody on the field knew exactly what was expected of them, what the system was. Like, they've been doing it together for a couple of years, which of course they have. And that, I think, will allow the new players to come into that team and settle in pretty quickly and take them on a little bit forward. And I think I'm not ready to say that I was wrong in picking them to go down this season, but they were a lot more impressive, I think, in week one than I expected to see them maybe at any point this season. But for Fulham, I really worry for them. I really do, because there's so much chopping and changing, whether it's the manager every other season or every season, whether it's a half dozen players coming in, a half dozen players going out. There's no consistency, no continuity. And that kind of resilience of a group that's been together for a while is exactly what you need as a newly promoted team that's trying to stay up. What did they not have 2 years ago when they came up and went down with one of the worst points totals in Premier League history? They didn't have either of those things.
Well, look at their schedule. Sorry, Joe, real quick. Look at their schedule. After Arsenal, they have Leeds, Villa, and then October it's Wolves, Sheffield United, Palace, and West Brom. If they don't figure it out quickly, they're wasting chances to pick up a lot of points, and they're going to have to get Felix Magath to come in and bring some cheese to rub on the injuries. So it's going to be something.
No one needs that again. It's at 10 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. Leeds United against Fulham. You can watch that. Full America fans. Anthony Robinson is working his way towards the squad. Tim Ream started. Lovely golden flowing locks from the St. Louis native. And that was one of my big takeaways from being at Craven Cottage the open day of the season. His American accent got even stronger when he was on the pitch, because I've met him a few times now since he's been over here, and he almost is working towards that Brad Friedel-esque, transatlantic British American accent. But he goes back to full on from St. Louis when he's barking orders at the midfield to get the ball from him.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and always join us every weekend at 7 a.m. on NBCSN for Premier League mornings. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Peacock Premium as well, where you can watch exclusively live 175 games and same-day on-demand replays of all 380 Premier League matches as well.